Blanton and his wife, Dr. LaTasha Blanton, are an African-American couple who live in Centurion. Among their business ventures, they run a website, therealsouthafrican.com, a platform that aims to provide fellow African-Americans an experience that is the antithesis of how Africa is portrayed in the United States. And they're joining us this evening to talk to us about what drew them to South Africa and how their counterparts have found Mzansi when they joined the couple. Good evening, and thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm going to begin with you, Mark. What attracted you to South Africa?
Well, it was a trip that I came on many years ago, back in 2010, during the World Cup. And then once I got here, I heard many things about South Africa, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But once I got here, it was absolutely incredible. The outreach and the pouring of love that I got from the people here. So that was the biggest draw for me to come to South Africa.
And have we, as South Africans, lived up to your experience in 2010?
Absolutely, absolutely. Every day is great here. We actually enjoy our time. We're just happy, to be part of the experience and having the opportunity to get the chance to learn all the cultures and the languages and things along that line. So it has definitely, reached up to my expectations.
And Dr. LaTasha, I'd like to bring you into this conversation. What perceptions did you have when you were first making your trip to South Africa?
I didn't really have any real perceptions. I had no real desire to actually come to Africa. There's a lot of African Americans that feel the same way that I do, simply because of what we're told about the continent in general. And then when you're thinking about South Africa, the only thing you ever hear about is apartheid and a lot of the crime that goes on. So when he came here in 2010 and his mind was blown and he came home and wouldn't stop talking about it, to the point to where the South Africans that he met while here were so welcoming, and they decided to invite us into their home. When we came for Christmas in 2011, it just made sense that I had been wrong about what I had been told my entire life regarding the continent, and especially South Africa. So my perceptions were quickly debunked when I got here.
Yes.
And I was like, I feel like I wish I had known about South Africa much sooner than I did.
And let's talk then about this website. It's a website to debunk the myths that a lot of, as you say, African Americans have about the continent and South Africa. What prompted the two of you to start it?
Well, it's a very good question. We would go back and forth on a regular basis when we owned our own company in the United States. So we were able to leave when we could, normally for like 2 weeks at a time, maybe a month. So every time we went back and forth, we had friends of ours that kept asking us, what's the deal? Why do you keep going to South Africa? Like, what's really going on over there? And it got to the point to where it was like, okay, we need to, we can't actually reach out to everyone. So we made a website, and we chose the name The Real South Africa simply because we wanted people to get to know the real South Africa.
And how has it been received? Are you finding more and more people are curious and coming through?
I would say a lot more people are curious about coming through, because even when you do a Google search for South Africa, unfortunately, what you're going to get is a lot of negative stuff.
Yes.
So what we've made sure we do, no matter what, is put out all of the positive experiences that we've had since we've been here and all of the times that we've visited. We've never had a negative experience. Not one. South Africans have been amazing to us, and we want other people to understand that they can have that same experience. And number two, South Africa is not, I won't say a poor country. They're not in a place where they need help, per se, and there's not animals running around. There's people are not living in huts, like there's actual houses. So just to let them know that the country in and of itself is very functional, has an amazing infrastructure, and just have them believe that when they come here, they will see people who are doing beautiful things, running businesses, having a good time, enjoying their families and their friends. So that's the whole point, that we want to show people in America that look like us, that when they come here, they're going to see people that look just like them, doing the same things that they do back home, and it's just better here.
Yeah.
And Mark, we can never have a conversation about South Africa and the United States without looking at what is currently happening in the country where you both come from. We're seeing lots of protests around the Black Lives Matter movement, and we saw the latest incident of the shooting of a man who's now left paralyzed in hospital, and really some protest scenes that we have been seeing coming out of that country. When you look back and you look at these protests, how does that make you feel?
Well, honestly, it's almost par for the course. As an adult male, black male from the United States, I can honestly tell you that the things you're seeing now are things that have been happening a long time ago. So it's very systemic to the point to where now that we're repatriated back here in South Africa and seeing what we see. It's very disheartening, and we do feel, pretty bad, for those that are at home, because some of the conversations that we have aren't very pleasant at all. And of course, we always encourage those to say, you know what, there is another option, and you should come to South Africa. I think that you would find some peace, in all regards.
And Dr. LaTasha, when you see people protesting on the streets this time, we saw protests even, gaining momentum all across the world after the killing of George Floyd. Do you think now there might be some change or even a moving of a needle here?
My personal opinion is that until America actually deals with their racism problem, it doesn't matter how much we protest. It doesn't matter how much we do all the things that they tell us will affect change. They're going to have to do some real hard soul searching. So as far as moving the needle, it might move it an inch. But as far as like real change, I don't think that that's going to happen until they address the actual problem.
And U.S. elections are coming up very soon, and we're seeing lots of candidates are coming out. Of course, right now, Joe Biden there, President Donald Trump coming out trying to promise all sorts of things to Americans. When you look at this, Dr. LaTasha, do you believe that there's a sense that America could move towards a different direction? And what are you hoping for when Election Day comes and goes?
As far as the movement in a different direction, I do believe for myself that if Donald Trump is elected again, there will be no resemblance of what America used to be. It will never be the same again. There is a little bit of hope left if Joe Biden is elected, but he will need to put together an agenda that is specific to Black people. The problem with putting together an agenda specific for Black people is that it offends the majority of the people in America who happen to be Caucasian. So having to include us in any type of conversation offends them. But until they actually do that, nothing's going to change. So we're still going to cast our votes even all the way here in South Africa, because we do believe that we still have a responsibility as American citizens to make sure that the people that are there, until they can find an alternative, that we do our part in making sure that they have a safe place to live.
And Mark, there are some people that are saying that it's time for a young president, someone who is, in their 30s or something. Do you think it's really an unfair call looking at the current candidates that America has?
Well, like I said, you're asking someone who's a little biased, simply because when I was, in the U.S., I worked for the U.S. government. I was actually U.S. Secret Service. And I was under Joe Biden's detail when I was there. And what I do know about him is it makes me feel like, there is an opportunity. And I'm pretty sure that, people see the president of the United States. Normally, they build teams around them. And there are plenty of young, energetic people who are on the staff, maybe not at senior levels, but they are on the staff, and they do make a difference. So, like I said, I'm a little biased, but at the end of the day, I would love to see, Joe Biden become the president of the United States, and hopefully he will address the agenda that Tasha talked about just a few minutes ago in reference to Black Lives Matters and just Black people in general in the United States.
And Dr. LaTasha, you know, something that really a lot of people have been talking about, the concerns around the deaths that we have been seeing linked to COVID-19 in America and how that situation has been handled. As you watch developments in South Africa, because there was a concern that South Africa was going to find itself, you know, in a very, very bad position. Yes, we are in the top 5 in the country, but the numbers are seemingly somewhat showing a downward trend. When you look at how the United States has handled this pandemic, what do you make of it?
I'm actually embarrassed that the America that everyone is shown is lacking so terribly in leadership. One thing that we've been saying, even when we post, you know, on our social media, we show people here in South Africa doing what the president asked to do without any real protest. So for me to see them in a situation that they truly do not have to be in, it's embarrassing and it's hurtful because we have family that's there. We have, you know, people that we love that are subjected to people who are protesting wearing masks that are going to keep them safe. We have people in the states that believe that the disease is not real. And we know people that have had it and have recovered and some that have died. So for them to take that stance because of leadership is embarrassing and disheartening, and I really wish that wasn't the case. But to talk to the Americans that we have the pleasure of talking to, whether they be family or potential clients, they all are in awe of the fact that South Africa's done such an amazing job. And that's one thing we've been telling people. South Africa did it right. Yeah, people still passed away, but they also understood that if they didn't do anything, i.e. like America, we would be in a much different position. And understanding that people were expecting Africa and South Africa to do so poorly. So for them to do better, I'm like touting my chest. I'm like, yeah, because we're better than that. And I say we because I really feel like I'm a part of this country now. So I can appreciate how it was handled.
And Mark, how difficult has it been then? Because when you look at what the governors, because the governors appear to be doing their own thing and the president is doing his own thing, and it doesn't look like there's synergy there. How then was that difficult when it comes to maintaining and even keeping those numbers low in the States?
Well, you know, the way the United States is set up, and I will never sit here and give you a history lesson. I mean, they are individual states, and then you also have, you have federal, level, and you have state level or provincial level, and states do have their rights, and they do have a chief executive that for each state or each province. And so, since the leadership did not come from the federal government or the central government, then each state needed to figure out individually, because normally they just, hey, the federal government says this is what we all do. But when there is no leadership, they literally had to fend for themselves.
And as a final question for me in 30 seconds, Dr. LaTasha, when when we now have international travel, everything is now open after COVID-19, South Africa is back to working again, because I know we're still in level 2 right now. What do you say to someone who's watching right now in the States, who's planning maybe next year sometime when we find ourselves somewhat back to, a little bit of what seems like normality? What do you say to them as you try to attract them again to South Africa?
The same thing that I always tell them. It's never too soon to plan a visit to South Africa. South Africa is open. It's waiting for you. It's beautiful. And I promise when you get here, it will over-deliver, and we will make sure that you have an amazing time. So we always encourage people to come to South Africa and just see it for yourself, because what we're showing you is basically what we can show you, but you have to experience it and feel it, and that's the thing that we want everyone to know. You got to feel South Africa.